hidden. Yes, it is. All right. So we did, last week we just did a little bit with camera works. I threw in some cameras. We made a sequencer by going here and saying add level sequence. And we made week 4, which was just a camera. We did a little bit of camera moving, and then I'll dock that right there. Expand it a little bit. And then we had fun with doing a little bit of camera movement and then using this camera cuts track to choose which camera is the camera that we're actually previewing. And then from there, we looked at transitions, which didn't do crossfades. They just did interpolated it, lerped between the cameras, which is probably not the final result. We'll see how that evolves as we go into Unreal 5. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about a couple more of the cinematic tools you have in here and really try to get us some more ownership of how do we really take these discrete animations we have, really string them together to make some sort of performance. And then how do we take these discrete cameras and turn them in for more of a camera performance? And that's ultimately the goal for today. To help you, again, play around with trying to test yourself and doing some sort of long take that is, just flex your muscles and see how that goes. So anything in, almost anything in Unreal can be animated. If you go to your details panel, let's see, if you have your sequencer open, you go to your details panel, you'll see all these little plus signs. These are all things that could be animated in sequencer, right? You can find them kind of haphazardly by digging down. And here's where it's good to remember the idea of the Unreal hierarchy, that everything inside of Unreal or in your outliner is an actor, and all the things underneath it are called components, right? So if I look at this camera actor, if I look peek underneath the hood, we see that it's actually a scene component, just like a null with a camera component on top of it, right? So these are two components that are part of this actor. If I wanted to animate the scene component, that's one thing in here. But we want to probably animate the camera component. So as we go deeper inside, we'll see that I'm not actually animating a component on an actor. That's just kind of like a class. We're actually animating things on the camera component inside of there. So sometimes you're not really adding a track to your actor, you're adding a track to your component within the actor. And that'll be even more apparent as we start looking into editing materials as well in here. Okay. A couple things that some people might have noted, that as you're dealing with this kind of stuff, you have, let's see, you have, where did I go? If a cinematic viewport, it starts locking things off into giving you more of a kind of the letterboxing, and allows you to have things like our grid for rule of thirds, right? So that was a different setting. Instead of just being a default viewport, we can start thinking about framing. And as we move around, you now have your cinematic camera viewport. That's a useful handy dandy thing. And as you resize it, again, cameras really don't have resolutions in Unreal. Cameras usually just adapt to whatever the screen is. That's how games work. But when you export, you can always allocate what the resolution is. So if my screen was 4K, you can render it to 4K. But it's more about aspect ratios inside of here, which you can adjust. Right here, we'll get into cameras, deeper into cameras and depth of field and all that kind of stuff later on. For those who asked, though, one reason why you probably can't get any cinematic depth of field, for those who've been messing around, is that you have to make sure that everything is in cinematic mode, right? And this is a thing that Unreal Engine, again, tries to be nice to your computers, and it automatically adjusts things so that it's not trying to make you do ray tracing by default. So it automatically adjusts these quality settings. If you're not getting depth of field, go to cinematic, and then you'll start, boom, you've unlocked that feature. I will get into that next week when we go into the character introduction. I just didn't want to leave anyone hanging on that because it's a quick thing just to fix, So anything we animated. And so let's start thinking about what we want to animate in the scene, right? We have these two Suzannes. Maybe we can do something with them. I didn't really bring in that much from Quixel, so I did do some quick asset browsing while I was in break. So, just some things to have in the world that we can mess around with. little scenic design real quick. I liked all that. My favorite though was as well. I love wells. There you go. And then we have our Suzannes and whatnot. Just trying to give us a quick little set dressing. Those seems to be quite tiny. All right. So let's address our the fact that anything can be animated. So go back to my sequencer. Obviously, things that are in here, we can find these tracks. But you're going to, once you add in a new asset like a camera, you need to actually add in the tracks to the camera components. And this will reflect everything over in your details panel. Or if you just find it in details, you can say, oh, I just want to change the focal length here. If I click that, it's now added a focal length to that camera right here. And it's exposed focal length. If I was dialing here, I can see that I can now animate that. Right, so it's not trying to overwhelm you with having everything exposed by default. Just add the discrete items you want to animate as you go. There we go. So now we've animated focal length. Cool. Once we start getting really complicated, you can imagine that it's really great to have a whole second monitor just for your sequencer to make a full screen and really get into here. In general, to start making things organized, just like I do in Outliner, feel free to liberally use folders and just rename them. And then you can start making it easier to group your stuff around. So we have cameras here, and I've organized them, and then we're not dealing with cameras. They're nice and hidden away. All right. We already talked about piloting and ejecting. Right now, I am locked into this camera. You can't maybe see too well, but it's highlighted white. That's because I'm piloting it. As I move it around, I'm actually changing the camera. I'm not just navigating my viewport. If you don't want to change it, you just remember to eject before you leave, which is also just turning off and on that button. All right, so that's piloting or possessing and ejecting. All right, so let's take a look at our actual characters. I might have to throw something back into Mixamo for us to play around with it. Let's look what we have. I'm going to go find all my animations. He doesn't have much, and he doesn't have much. So let's go ahead, and we want to go back into Mixamo or something. Let's go ahead and find our asset. Right click and export. And it probably is on my hard drive from working with it earlier. I like to make a folder in my root called imports, and these are my assets that I can keep on using over and over again. And that way, when I eventually by the second half of the semester using version control, I can continue to find them really easily. I'm going to export them later on. So now I have this asset exported, and we're just gonna get some like walk cycles real quick, so we can address how to make these instead of making things loop, where we can make them actually go continuously. Small chance one of them's already in here. Yeah, okay, so upload character. And imports, and now it's here. Again, I'm not worried about textures anymore. My character's already been imported. My character's in a perfect T-pose. All I need is some data that is the exact same proportions to my character. So whatever comes in will be fine for us. Great. And let's just find a walk and a run and a jump. Walk. Let's have them have a little sachet. And now we don't want to do in place. Beforehand, we were talking about doing that as a quick fix to make them not loop and pop. But now, as of 4.26, Unreal Engine has solved that. So we're going to make it actually travel in world space, so it's a little bit more natural. So we're going to download, and we don't need the skin, we just need the data. Run, and then we'll do a jump. That's a fun run. That might be difficult. Oh, oh, obviously. Okay, that was a no-brainer. Obviously. And then the jump, the only thing I want to make sure with the jump is that it jumps from the ground, not like from a ledge down or something like that. It has to be a little logical. So that's just fine. That one is classic. Nope, that's exactly what I would say I don't want to have. There we go, running jump. That'll be fun. So I think this is probably one of the most important things. Let's address this first and we'll get into all the other topics. Again, this was a huge move forward for Unreal. This was demoed in the Meerkat example, which is here in the Learn tab. You can download it. It was done by folks at Weta Digital. It's where they announced kind of the control rig and how to do animation blending in Unreal. This was previously something that you had to do in Maya, any digital content creation tool. I would do it in Motion Builder. So I have my downloads. If I think I'm going to come back to these, I might actually put them over in my imports folder to find them later on. But for right now, I think I'm not going to need them again. I'm just going to put in my downloads, which I clean out very regularly throughout the semester. Animations folder. And then again, we just need to make sure they're on our skeleton so that we can blend between them. Everything by default, great. Let's do one at a time. You're fine. Okay. Let's do one at a time. It is Donald. All right, so it's caused me a couple issues. I'm going to pivot real quick, and let's go ahead and download the mesh as a T-pose, and then I'll just create a new character. I don't know. I just moved this project to this computer, so let's just go ahead and say with skin, problem solved. Hopefully. So the new name of this follow pose. And bring that. It's a new person. Fine. Record all. That's that. Use. Why is it giving me? That character. This is an issue with Nixamo. Where did my character go? Did I never upload it? Oh, I did. You know what? I don't care. For today, it's fine. Let's use frame 0. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'll grab them again. Okay, let's see what they look like. Run, running jump, and walking. Cool. Little change of plans. The cinematic universe just includes the Y-bot. All right, so I'm going to bring in our fellow, and maybe they're having a little meeting, and then he was leaving, and he wants to go explore on his own. He's really excited. He wants to run and jump into a well, which would involve moving this fellow. All right, so let's add in Y-bot into our sequencer. If we're going to add a bunch of them, I can always make a folder for our skeletal meshes. And then we have already a space for animation. And I'm going to add in, I'm going to start with walking, move it to the front. And now we had it so that it walked forward. right? And we can make that loop if we want to by just continuing to drag it. And then it has a little animation, but then it pops back. So to solve that, we can put in the next animation, which is the running animation. And you go here, just drag, select it, run. And we've seen how we can blend these together. Right, so it's right here, and then it's about to hit the right foot, and then it falls backwards. The next animation kind of starts at the right foot. What's cool though is if you right click on this little transition now, and this is the thing they added in, you get to say match with bone. You get to actually transition on this bone. And so you try to find the part in the cycle where the bones kind of match together, like both right feet are on the ground at this moment, both left feet are on the ground at this moment. You can transition off of hands if you're doing a handstand, all that kind of stuff. So we'll give it a shot. I know that it's kind of ones in the air, like they're almost matching. So let's just choose one. We're going to look for the right foot. And now we see that it actually isn't so far off, right? It's made of, at least we've resolved the issue that it's not popping back to the beginning. The orientation seems to be off because our character's at the very beginning of his footstep and this guy's at the very end of his footstep. So it's a little bit confused. I can always try to, merge a little better before I do the stuff. Oops, gotta make sure I'm on the same track still. But you can adjust that. You can say, thank you. We don't want to match yaw rotation. And now we resolve that. Right. This is a really useful tool. So just mess around with it. There's a few buttons there. Choose, mess around with which bones. Do you want to match the heights? Do you want to match other things like that? And until it looks smooth to you. And then for the final component is we need to jump into the well. So that's what was that running jump? You could do a little blend. And we can see what kind of bone we should be matching. So this one's kind of ending with the right foot, and this one's jumping off the right foot. Let's do right foot then. Again, match with the right foot. Let's see. Going back, let's see if we do that right. Match on with the next clip. Right foot. And previous clip. That's what I think I meant to do, right foot. Jump. I think I need to turn off that rotation again. So let's say don't. And that seems to be going more a straight line. And at this point, let's just cheat with the set design. There we go. Super cool. Like that's a huge break forward. That really unlocks a lot of things. So have fun with that. That gets a whole lot of things out of the way, and that we can use Mixamo. We can make entire music videos and stuff like that. Cool. So that's one thing. So we have our character, and maybe we want to actually see this approach. Maybe we want to get a little POV, and I know that people did some POV camera work before. So that's quite simple. And some of you guys have seen how you parent things to skeletal meshes, let you choose which bone to parent things to. Important concept to get. So let's cinematic camera. And I'm going to drag it. I'm going to find the Y-bot. And if things start getting complicated again, I might want to make another folder for my skeletal meshes. Right. So again, I like to put things at the top. 01 skeletal meshes. And that way it's easier to find things as we start getting complicated. Obviously, we make another one for our cameras, for anything that has dynamic materials. Right. Let's make one for cameras. Go to camera. Great. So this one is one we just added. Let's take it to our character called T-pose and then put it on the head. And then let's zero it out. And now if we look right here, we can pin it. So we look through it, we can see we're actually getting the POV of this character walking. It might be a little bit off. You know, you can animate the position of this parenting, right? We can rotate it a little bit. Not that way. That would be making us sick. So we both can do that. Come back over here. Take the camera. Because right now it's looking at the world position. We might want to actually look at the local position of the bone, and it aligns the axis correctly for us. There we go. So now we've offset that a little bit, and that's pretty cool. That's a great little shot there. And then we would have to add it to our camera cuts. Right, so now all these other shots that we had, we might not be using because we start off with a running jump. Choosing to put this camera in sequencer, we can now find it. And this is the beginning of our shot. Locked in. That's our movie. Cool. A couple things taken care of. But then we want to cut to some sort of other shot that's more like establishing something. So around here, let's do another cut, but we're going to find a let's go ahead and jump straight into our other kind of cameras. So if you go over here to cinematic, you see that yes, we have a camera rig crane and a camera rig rail. Let's just throw those out on the ground. Let Al, where are you? Oh, hit G so you can see your assets and our rail. So this is a jib arm or a boom arm or whatever you want to call it. And this is a dolly track. Let's first of all do our dolly track. Maybe we want to get a perspective. You know, again, I have no set dressing behind here. So I think this is definitely where our video village is. We want to look this way at our guy. So let's take this dolly track, move it over, and then make it horizontal to the action. So rotate it around. And then if you see here, there's a little node there. That is, if you hold down Alt, drag, you can extend it out and make new nodes. Drag again. And then as you start bending it and rotating it, you'll see that it actually is a spline and it smooths out those moves. Also works vertically. And then I keep on adding new spline nodes every time I hold down Alt and drag. All right, let's add another camera. And we're going to find that rail. We're going to take all three of these things and move them to our cameras. And we're going to take that last cinematic camera I brought in there and put it on the rail and then zero it out. And we see that it's right here at the beginning. It's not facing the right way, but we'll deal with that in a second. I'm gonna unpin this one so it's not really. All right. And now we know the action's over there, but the way the rail works is that with it selected, it's very simple that we just say from 0 to 1. You animate 0 at the beginning, and then you animate 1 at the end. Our shot is going to maybe go from right when about to jump over. We'll start our camera rail keyframe. Now it's in there. This is our rail. We have a keyframe at 0, and then maybe at the end when it lands, that's the 1. All right, so just go to 1. Cool. We need the camera to face the right way. So we can always aim this and keyframe it along the way. That makes obvious sense. But you might see in this first setting of your camera tracking is that you could say enable look at tracking. I could take Mr. Ybot there, choose them. Was that the right one? That was not the right one. It's just called T-pose. Nope, I'm just gonna drag it in. It's gonna cheat. It's right here. There we go. There's the correct one, and say enable look at. And now we're having to be, let's raise it up just a slight bit. It should be looking at the character. Let's see what happens. Let's lock in this camera actor. Let's bring camera actor 7 in here. Lock it in. And now we can see we're seeing it, but it's not really following it. Let's cameras on the rail. Focused. So, yeah. Oh, because it starts there. Let's see. Let's eject real quick. See what's going on. I'll do it for 1 frame. Which is that person. Let's take it off real quick.
Did it happen when you pulled it up off the rail to raise the camera? That disconnected?
Yeah, so I just, it was good. Yeah, so I just took it off again. I'm just going to kind of reparent it and start again. Let's do it back on the rail. Zero it out. And then let's choose the object first. Let's do all right, so now it's looking, and I should be able to offset up and down. Let's bring it into the camera cuts. 7. Cuts. I type G to get rid of all these things. It's also not, where's our 1? There it goes. It's doing it. Sorry, I didn't have the rail wasn't animated. All right, so now it's not looking up, it's too low. So let's take the camera actor, and now I think we can offset it. Right? So that, you know, say, hey buddy, eyes up here. There we go. And then how do we want to frame it? Well, it's going in that direction, so we probably want to lead it a little bit on the framing. Right? But these are all have keyframes next to it, so we could change that looking at behavior. In general, we cut, come around, we see that it's always looking at it super fast, which is easily resolved by making this take a little longer. But that's the idea, is that you can make it aim, offset, and then follow it around. That's pretty cool. A little bullet time thing, right? That's fun and all, but I mean, have you ever put a dolly on a rail? Let's go ahead and eject out of here. And let's take, the dolly does the same thing, right? It's a, hold down G so I can see these things again. You take a cinematic camera and then you parent it to your, move it over to the cameras. And then you can put it on crane. And then you zero it out. And then your crane shot, let's just go ahead and rotate the whole thing around. Then you have three controls over your crane end. You have the pitch, right? It goes up and down. You have your yaw, which goes, of course, left and right. And then you have how long the telescopic arm is, right? And what's fun about this is, of course, it's infinite because it's a video game. So you can go into space or whatever in one shot. Oops, it's gonna take a while to get back. There we go. So you can have fun with the cranes, but I think what's the best thing to do though is to take the crane and parent to the rail, zero it out. And then as the dolly goes, the crane goes with it. There you go. We got like the turducken of cinema. All right. And then our crane shot needs to have a look at of looking at the character, T-pose, enabling it, offsetting it, and then as we bring in our crane, then we can choose to animate the three different properties here of seeing that. That's cool, right? But maybe we want to then bring up the arm length, to raise it up, and really get an idea of how high. And then lead it a little bit, so let's bring it back down. And maybe not as much of a lead. Great. So I didn't keyframe those, so I just lost all that, but that's okay. Just go back up and then just make sure that I'm bringing it into here. And then I should have auto keyframe on. There you go. So if I have auto keyframe on, sorry, I just switched to this computer and my settings aren't by default saved. So there we go. So let's raise it up. And pitch it up and tilt it down. Make sure that's in there. That would be on number 7. There we go. There we go. So now we have the POV. If I add that back in, and then we got this awesome crane dolly shot. right, this little keyframe convolution right there, but it's like that one. Cool. So that was, those are the two main big things, is like how to do some more cinematic things, and then how to get our animations together. I think the most important thing from here is just showing you the how to get into those material parameters that we've been messing around with. Let's go back in here. So let's see. So POV, and then we cut to, hold down G and do that. Oh, and that's because it's doing it from the Dolly one. We're going to add a number 7 so that we get our crane shot instead. All right, POV and then crane shot. Is that not crane shot? No, 9 is our crane shot. And so you can always rename these so it's easier for you to figure out what they are. Give it a meaningful name. There we go. Now we see this. That's what it should be looking like. I think this thing just got all muddy. Just delete everything. There we go. There's a little bit right there that was confusing everything. All right, so we just have a few moments left. So let's finish up with materials. First, we're going to add in the POV, which was number 5. And then right when we did the jump, we wanted to get in our number 9. There we go. Not the best match move, but we'll deal with that later. Or never. So let's bring in Suzanne to help out with the rest of this. I'm going to eject. And when Suzanne, in plural, see what happens in the end, they're going to get very excited and their eyes are going to glow in support. We've already seen that these from last week, that these characters have a material that has the body of the eye has a parameter that's set to glow, and we're able to drive that in real time. So let's default these at 1. And both eyes are set fine. I guess because they're both sharing the same one. Instance could be unique. It'd be one, we can make just one eye glow or one set of eyes glow at a time. But right, apparently they're sharing the same instance. At the very end, as it goes over, we'll make them glow. So let's go ahead and throw Suzanne and sequencer and see Suzanne 2 and sequencer. Maybe make a folder for static meshes. Start organizing a little bit. Maybe this goes into cameras. That goes into cameras. Also, lots of cameras. And then 2 Suzannes. Static meshes. All right. So again, here's the actor and the components of the actor. So we have Suzanne, which is the mesh. But we're going to look at the static mesh component of Suzanne, the actor. Right. So once we click on that, and then we add the track, we see we have these elements 0, 1, and 2. That corresponds to these 3 materials. Right. So the eyes that have the glow are element 0. And then when we get in there, we see there's a parameter called glow. So it's down deep in there, but by default it's 1, which we set it to. And then we come to the end of the jump and we want them to be crazy glowy. Right? So now that's animated. Let's do it with the other one. Again, Suzanne is the actor the static mesh is a component of that actor. And we're going to look at the material since it's on element 0. And it's a parameter called glow, or we could change color. We could say Suzanne's eyes are white, and then we can, in the end, say she turns into a kid from Polar Express, and she has dead eyes. Right, so this Suzanne has money on this jump, and this Suzanne also has money, but it's got to lose their money. So 2 different outcomes, but all tied to the sequencer. Right? So yeah, that's good enough for right now. So we have our camera cuts, which can choose whatever cameras we have in here. We did a POV, and we see that we then switched over to this crane shot and finished our scene. Cool. That was like 3 really important things, but I'm sure you'll have fun with that. That really kind of opens up a lot. If you don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and stop the recording.